The next chapter is called The Heart of a Mouse. It was lovely to be back in Nora once again in my grandmother's fine old house, but now I was so small everything looked different and it took me quite a while to find my way around. Mine was a world of carpets and table legs and chair legs and the little crannies behind large pieces of furniture. A closed door could not be opened and nothing could be reached that was on a table. But after a few days, my grandmother began to invent gadgets for me in order to make life a little bit easier. She got a carpenter to put together a number of slim, tall step ladders, and she placed one of these against each table in the house so that I could climb up whenever I wanted to. She herself invented a wonderful door-opening device made out of wires and springs and pulleys, with heavy weights dangling on cords, and soon every door in the house had a door opener on it. All I had to do was press my front paws onto a tiny wooden platform and presto, a spring would stretch and weight would drop and the door would swing open. Next, she rigged up an equally ingenious system whereby I could switch on the light whenever I entered a room at night. I cannot explain how it worked because I know nothing about electricity, but there was a little button sunk into the floor near the door in every room in the house. And when I pressed the button gently with one paw, the light would come on. When I pressed it a second time, the light would go off. My grandmother made a tiny toothbrush using a matchstick for a handle, and into it she stuck little bits of bristles so she snipped off of her hairbrushes. You must not get any holes in your teeth. I can't take a mouse to a dentist. He'd think I'd be crazy. It's funny, but ever since I became a mouse, I hated the taste of sweets and chocolates, so I don't think I'll be getting any holes. You still have to brush your teeth after every meal, my grandma said, and I did. For a bathtub, she gave me a small sugar bowl, and I bathed in it every night before going to bed. She allowed no one else into the house, not even a servant or a cook. We kept entirely to ourselves, and we were happy with each other's company. One evening, I lay on my grandmother's lap in front of the fire, and she said to me, I wonder what happened to that little Bruno. I wouldn't be surprised if his father gave him the hall porter to drown in the fire bucket. I answered, I'm afraid you may be right. That poor little thing. We were silent for a few minutes, and my grandmother was puffing away at her black cigar while I dozed comfortably in the warmth. Can I ask you something, Grandmama? I said. You can ask me anything, my darling. How long does a mouse live? Ah, I've been waiting for you to ask me that. There was silence, and she sat there smoking, gazing at the fire. And here's a picture of him bathing and brushing his teeth. Well, how long do we live, us mice? I've been reading about mice. I've been trying to find out everything I can about them. Well, go on then, Grandmama. Why don't you tell me? If you really want to know, I'm afraid a mouse doesn't live very long. Well, how long? Well, an ordinary mouse usually lives about 3 years. But you are not an ordinary mouse. You are a mouse person, and that is a very different matter. Well, how different? How long does a mouse person live, Grandmama? Longer, much longer. Well, how much longer? A mouse person will almost certainly live for 3 times as long as an ordinary mouse, about 9 years. Good, that's great. It's the best news I've ever had. Well, why did you say that? She looked surprised. Because I would never want to live longer than you. I couldn't stand being looked after by anybody else. There was a short silence. She had a way of fondling me behind the ears with the tip of one finger, and it felt lovely. How old are you, Grandmama? I'm 86. Will you live another 8 or 9 years? I might, with a bit of luck. You've got to, because by then I'll be a very old mouse, and you'll be a very old grandmother, and soon, after that, we'll both die together. That would be perfect, she said. I had a little doze after that. I just shut my eyes and thought of nothing and felt at peace with the world. Would you like me to tell you something about yourself that is very interesting, Grandmother said. Yes, Grandmama. I couldn't believe it at first, but apparently it's quite true. Well, what is it? The heart of the mouse, and that means your heart, is beating at the rate of 500 times a minute. Isn't that amazing? That's not possible. It's as true as I'm sitting here. It's a sort of a miracle. That's nearly 9 beats every second, I cried, working that out in my head. Correct. Your heart is going so fast it's impossible to hear the separate beats. All one hears is a soft humming sound. She was wearing a lace dress, and the lace kept tickling my nose, and I had to rest my head on the front paws. Have you ever heard my heart humming away, Grandmama? Often. I hear it when you are lying very close to me on my pillow at night. The two of us remained silent in front of the fire for a long time after that, thinking about these wonderful things. My darling, are you sure you don't mind being a mouse for the rest of your life? I don't mind at all. It doesn't matter who you are or what you look like, as long as somebody loves you. Okay, we're going to finish, I think, the next chapter, and then we are done with the book. See you in the next video.